It was a cold morning on December 1st, 1948. The sun was rising slowly over Somerton Beach in Adelaide, Australia. A man was walking his dog along the shore when he noticed something strange. A man was sitting against the seawall, legs stretched out, head resting against the stones. It's as if he had fallen asleep watching the waves. But something about the scene felt wrong. The man wasn't moving. Even the sea breeze that brushed against his face didn't wake him. When the dog barked and the man still didn't stir, the passerby came closer. That's when he realized this man wasn't sleeping. He was dead. And so began one of the most mysterious unsolved cases in history, the Somerton Man. The police arrived quickly. The man was dressed in a clean suit, a white shirt, and polished shoes. He looked like a businessman who had simply decided to rest after a long night. Except he was lifeless. There were no signs of struggle. No wounds. No blood. Inside his pockets were some everyday things. A train ticket. A bus ticket. A comb. A pack of gum. And a box of cigarettes. But there was no wallet. No money. And most importantly, no ID. Every label on his clothes had been carefully removed, cut out with precision. It was as if someone didn't want the world to know who he was. The police checked every hotel, every missing person's record in the country. No one matched the face of the Somerton Man. His fingerprints didn't match any in Australia or anywhere in the world. Next day, doctors performed an autopsy. The man was in perfect health, strong heart, clear lungs, except for one strange detail. His internal organs were badly damaged. His stomach and liver showed signs of poisoning, but the pathologist couldn't find any trace of poison. No chemical, no drug, no injection mark. It was like the poison had disappeared completely. The doctor shook his head and said, "Death by poison, ... But what kind of poison, we'll never know. It was as if the killer had used something no one had ever seen before. Days turned into weeks. No one came forward to claim the body. No one seemed to recognize the man. The newspapers called him the mystery man of Somerton Beach. People began to whisper stories that he was a spy, an assassin, or a man with a secret identity. Some said he was a lost lover waiting for someone who never came. Others believed he had taken his own life. The police, desperate for answers, searched every clue they had. Then they found something strange. A suitcase at Adelaide railway station. It had been left in the luggage room on the same day the man was found dead. Inside the suitcase, officers found clothing that matched the man's size. But again, every single label had been removed. There was one name faintly written on a tie. T. Keane. When police checked, no missing person named T. Keane was reported anywhere. Inside the suitcase were more odd items. A screwdriver, scissors, a table knife sharpened like a weapon, and a small brush used by stencil artists, or maybe spies. One officer said quietly, "This isn't a regular man. Whoever was, he was hiding something." Weeks later, while checking the man's clothing again, a hidden pocket was found sewn into the lining of his trousers. Inside it was a tiny, rolled-up piece of paper with 2 words printed on it. Tamam Shud. The words were Persian, meaning it is finished. They came from a rare book of poetry, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. It wasn't just strange, it was chilling. What did "is finished" mean? Was it a clue left by the dead man? A message to someone? Or his final words? Police began searching for any copy of the Rubaiyat that could match the paper. A few days later, a local man came forward. He had found a book tossed into the back seat of his car, parked near Somerton Beach, the same area where the body was found. Inside the back of that book, police discovered a torn page, the exact spot where Tamam Shud had been ripped out. Now they knew this was the book the paper came from, but there was more. On the back cover of the book, someone had scribbled strange letters, a secret code made of random letters and symbols, and a phone number. The mystery was growing darker. The phone number led police to a young nurse named Jessica Thompson, who lived only a few hundred meters from where the body was discovered. When they showed her the dead man's face, she turned pale. Her hands began to shake, but she said she didn't know him. Still, the police noted something odd. Her reaction seemed too strong for a stranger. Was she lying? Was this man connected to her past? And why was his final message hidden inside a book linked to her phone number? The investigation hit a wall. No identity, no cause of death, no clear answers. The man was buried under a simple headstone that read, "Here lies the unknown man found at Somerton Beach." But decades later, scientists and detectives would reopen the case, uncovering DNA, hidden relationships, and secrets no one expected. Who was the Somerton Man? A spy? A lover? A ghost from someone's past? The truth was buried deeper than anyone could imagine. The story of the Somerton Man was far from over. Months had passed since the mysterious body was found on Somerton Beach. But the questions only grew darker. Police still didn't know who he was or how he died. The only clues they had were a strange book, a secret code, and the phone number of a woman who seemed terrified. Jessica Tumser, the nurse, lived a quiet life, not far from the beach. When the detectives visited her home, she looked calm on the outside, but her eyes told a different story. When they showed her the copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, she froze. It was as if the memories of another time flashed before her eyes, yet she denied knowing anything about the book or the dead man. "I have never seen him before," she said softly, avoiding eye contact. But when one officer placed the man's photo in front of her again, her lips trembled, her face turned pale, and she seemed close to fainting. The detectives exchanged glances. Something was wrong. She was hiding something. After the police left, Jessica closed her door and leaned against it. Breathing heavily, she whispered to herself, "It can't be him. It can't be." But deep down, she knew. The next morning, police began working on the strange code found inside the book. It looked like random letters written in rows, DOERGOA-BABE, and others that made no sense. Experts from the Navy and cryptographers tried to break it. Some said it was a secret spy code. Others thought it was a message between lovers. But no one could solve it. The meaning stayed hidden, like the man's identity. In the newspapers, people started making wild guesses. Some believed he was a Russian agent during the Cold War. Others thought he was a British spy who had been poisoned for knowing too much. There were even whispers that Jessica herself might have been part of something secret. Maybe she once loved him. Maybe she betrayed him. Jessica kept living her life quietly. She married, had a son, and never spoke about the Somerton Man again. But the story continued to follow her, like a shadow. People said that sometimes she would wake up screaming at night. Her husband never understood why. Years turned into decades. The mystery of the Somerton Man became one of Australia's strangest unsolved cases. His grave stood alone, with only the words "Unknown Man" carved into the stone. But even though time moved on, the world never forgot his face. Then, in the 1970s, a new clue appeared. A man named Gary Feltus, a retired detective, became obsessed with the case. He visited the grave, collected every document, every witness report, and every theory that had ever been written. He believed that somewhere, hidden between the lines, was the truth. He met old police officers who had worked on the case, and even found people who had known Jessica. Most said she never spoke about that time, but one friend revealed something shocking. Jessica once owned a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, the same rare edition from which the Tamam Shud paper was torn. If that was true, it meant the dead man and Jessica were connected in some deep way. But how? Feltus visited Jessica's house to ask her directly. By then, she was old and sick, but her eyes still held that same haunted look. When he mentioned the Somerton Man, she said only one thing: "I don't want to talk about it. It's finished." The same words found on that tiny piece of paper Tamam Shud. It is finished. But for Gary Feltus, it was not finished. He continued digging. He found that Jessica's son, Robin, had an unusual feature. His ears and the shape of his teeth were almost identical to the Somerton Man's. Even scientists noticed the resemblance. Could it be possible that Robin was the son of the Somerton Man? If that were true, Jessica had hidden the biggest secret of all: that the unknown man on Somerton Beach was not a stranger, but someone she once loved. In the 2000s, new technology brought hope. DNA testing had become powerful enough to solve old mysteries. In 2021, after many years of requests, the authorities finally allowed scientists to exhume the Somerton man's body. His remains were carefully tested. As the DNA results came in, the truth began to surface. The man was finally identified as Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer and instrument maker from Melbourne. He had gone missing around 1947. But that answer only opened more questions. Why had he come to Adelaide? How did he end up poisoned on the beach? And what was his connection to Jessica Thompson? Records showed that Charles Webb had a wife who had left him, and some believed he came to Adelaide to find her, or maybe to find someone else connected to her. There were hints that Jessica, who once went by the name Jeston, might have known him from her past. The mystery was no longer just about a dead man. It was about a secret love, lost identities, and the dangerous web of lies that people weave to protect themselves. Even with the DNA results, not every question was answered. The cause of death remains uncertain. The poison theory still haunts investigators. No one knows who gave it to him, or why every label was cut from his clothes. The only thing that remains clear is this: the Somerton man was not just a random stranger. He was part of someone's life, someone's past, and maybe someone's guilt. On quiet nights, locals who walk near Somerton Beach say they sometimes see a figure sitting against the seawall, wearing a suit, watching the horizon as the waves crash softly at his feet. They say, he looks peaceful, almost asleep, just like he did that cold morning in 1948. But if you look closely, his eyes seem to follow you, as if he's still searching for the answers that the world never gave him. The case that began with one silent body on a beach had turned into a story of love, loss, and secrets buried deep in time. And though science has given the man a name, the truth behind his death remains hidden, unfinished, just like the message he left behind. Tamam Shud. It is finished. Or maybe it never truly was. Years had passed since the Somerton man was finally identified as Carl Webb. His name had returned from the shadows, but his story was still incomplete. Everyone thought the mystery was over, but the truth was deeper. Hidden beneath layers of silence, secrets, and sand. Detective Gary Feltus had retired long ago, but even in his old age, the case never left his mind. He would sometimes visit Somerton Beach, standing in the same place where the man's body had once been found. The sea breeze felt colder there, as if it carried whispers from the past. He would stare at the waves and think, why did Carl come here? Who was he waiting for? When the DNA results confirmed Carl Webb's identity, researchers started piecing together his life. He was an electrical engineer, a quiet man with a sharp mind. But something had broken inside him before he vanished. His marriage had fallen apart, and his wife had moved to Adelaide, the same city where his body would later be found. Was he trying to find her? Did she reject him? Or did something darker happen between them? Documents from that time showed that Carl had a temper, a restless spirit, and a strange interest in chemistry and electronics. Some believed he might have made his own poison not to kill others, but himself. Yet, there were no traces of poison found in his body. Nothing matched. It was like he had taken something unknown to science, something that vanished without a trace. People wondered if he had met Jessica Thompson because she was once connected to his wife. Some said Jessica had been living under a different name to escape her past. Others believed she was part of a secret group that used codes in books like the Rubaiyat to send messages. No proof ever surfaced, but the coincidences were impossible to ignore. The strange code written inside the book still confused experts. Even after decades, no one could solve it. It looked like random letters, but many suspected it was a kind of cipher, maybe representing the initials of words from a poem or messages known only to two people. A computer scientist once suggested it could be a farewell message written in secret form. If that were true, then perhaps the code wasn't for the world to understand. It was only meant for one person. Maybe when Jessica Thompson died in 2007, she took her secrets with her. But her son Robin's DNA gave scientists more clues. It turned out that Robin and the Somerton man shared distant family connections. They were related through bloodlines that stretched back generations, but not as father and son. That small detail changed everything again. If Robin wasn't Carl's son, then why did they look so much alike? Why did Jessica react with such fear when she saw the dead man's photo? Some said it wasn't guilt, it was recognition. Maybe Carl Webb had known something dangerous, something that could have destroyed more lives if it came out. Some historians began connecting the dots to secret experiments during the post-war years. Australia, like many countries, was involved in intelligence work after World War II. Scientists, engineers, and code experts often worked under hidden identities. Carl Webb, being an engineer with chemistry knowledge, could have been part of such work. And maybe he learned something he shouldn't have. Maybe that's why he ended up dead on a beach with no ID, no name, and a message that said, "Edie's," but the truth, as always, remains uncertain. In 2022, the Somerton Man's grave was given a new plaque with his real name. Visitors began leaving flowers, notes, and small copies of the rubaiyat beside it. People from around the world came to see the grave of the man who died with the most mysterious story of all. Some nights, tourists said they felt a chill near the headstone. One woman claimed she heard whispering when the wind blew, a man's voice repeating the same two words, "It's finished." Others said they saw footprints in the sand near the shore at dawn, even though no one else was there. Locals began to tell a legend that the spirit of the Somerton Man still walks the beach, searching for something he lost. Maybe his identity, maybe his love, maybe forgiveness. Detective Feltas, now old and tired, visited the grave one last time before his health began to fade. He placed a single white rose on the headstone and whispered, "You can rest now, mate. We found your name." But as he turned to leave, he felt something, a presence, standing just behind him. The air grew still. He looked back quickly, but no one was there. Only the sea, the sand, and the whisper of the wind. That night, Feltus couldn't sleep. He dreamed of the beach, of a man in a suit sitting by the seawall. The man looked at him, smiling faintly, and said, "It's not finished." Then he faded into the fog. When Feltus woke, his heart was racing. He wrote down the dream in his notebook. He said, "It's not finished." A week later, a small storm hit Somerton Beach. The sea waves were rough, and parts of the sand near the old wall were washed away. After the storm cleared, a metal detectorist found something shining near the same spot where the Somerton Man had been found. A small silver locket buried deep in the sand. Inside the locket was a faded photo. A woman's face, smiling softly. It looked like Jessica Thompson when she was young. On the back of the photo, barely visible, were two words scratched by hand. "It is finished." The police kept the locket, but it was never confirmed to belong to Carl Webb. Still, the timing, the location, and the message were too perfect to ignore. Maybe, after all these years, the beach had decided to return what it had been hiding. And so, the mystery of the Somerton Man remains both solved and unsolved. His name is known, but his story still floats between fact and legend. Was he a spy, a broken lover, or simply a man who wanted to disappear? No one truly knows. When the wind blows across Somerton Beach at night, the waves seem to whisper those final words. Tamam Shud. It is finished. Or perhaps, it never really was.